everyone. Good afternoon to all of you for taking out time on an afternoon on a working day. Thank you very much for being here. We are about to begin a panel discussion on digitalizing your future business with cloud. For this, we have our guest, Mr. Avinash Godtindi, the CEO and MD of Zaggle, Mr. Ranga Kanapati, Head of Engineering and India Technology Center, Metric, Mr. Sachin Lala, Head of Engineering Blackhawk Network, Mr. Revan De Silva, VP, CTIO and NA Practice Head, Capgemini, and Mr. Daya Prakash, Founder, Talent on Lease. So Mr. Daya Prakash would be moderating the event, this panel discussion today. And to give you a brief discussion about him, introduction about him, Mr. Daya Prakash has been in the enterprise and digital technology domain for over 2 decades now. He has a vast experience at a global level. Before starting his entrepreneurial journey as a founder of www.talentonlease.com, which is into providing IT talent on demand, Mr. Daya served LG India as the CAIO. Thank you. Over to you, Daya, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anamika. Thank you so much for that short and quick introduction. Hello, everyone. Before I begin this particular session, I hope everyone is doing great and keeping safe. Times are difficult, and I know that staying safe is equally important as important it is for being good from other perspectives of the life. So as you all are aware that we are going to have this discussion today on topic called digitalize your future business with cloud. I am so excited today to have with me Mr. Avinash, Mr. Radhakrishnan, Mr. Renga, Mr. Revan, and Mr. Sachin, to participate in this particular discussion. I would like to go to each one of them and request them for their quick introduction so that all of us, we know what kind of experience and they bring to the table, and how important their views are that they are going to be sharing with us in our discussion today. May I request Mr. Avinash to introduce himself first?
Yeah, hi there. Thank you for the opportunity. Really excited to be part of this. I'm the MD and CEO of Zaggle. Zaggle is a B2B fintech company digitizing spends for over 4,000 businesses today. And we have a whole host of other merchant partners as well. And we use cloud services extensively to be able to scale up and ramp up our businesses. And, before that, I did my MBA from Chicago Booth, and I launched a credit card called Premier Miles in India, worked with Citi in the US, Barclays in London, but not that relevant for this discussion today.
Thank you so much, Avinash. Thank you so much. If I may come to you, Ranga, for your quick introduction.
Yes.
Your camera is off, Ranga, if you can. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon. And I'm just trying to switch between the system because of the network. So thanks for having us today, and it's great to be part of this panel. I really. And so my name is Ranga Kanapati. I am heading the technology and also the India Technology Center and APAC for Altimetric.
Ranga, your voice is little low. Ranga, your voice is little low. And
yeah. Okay. Is
much
it better
now? Much better now.
Okay. So yeah, it's primarily I'm heading the technology division for Altimetric and manage global delivery and also manage APAC business. So been in the industry like everybody else for over 2 decades, and both US, India, APAC here and there. And as an Altimetric, we are a service technology organization providing solutions for most of the marquee customers in fintechs and healthcare and automobile. And like others, so we have heavily invested on data and the cloud technology. Last 3 years, we've been doing a very serious work for large enterprises like Novartis, Citi, and major customers and complete transformation. So we've been there, done that, and a lot of good experience. Happy to be part of this panel and share our experience with the panels. And thank you all, and good afternoon, everybody.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ranga. If I may come to you, Sachin, for your
Sure,
quick
there.
introduction.
Thank you there. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Happy to be here. I am currently working with Blackhawk Network. Blackhawk Network, recently we opened a strategic development center in India. We are in the bootstrapping phase. Our company is into branded payments, gift cards, rewards, loyalty programs. And the cloud journey has been going on, I think, for the company for last almost 3 years or so. And quite an intense journey. Personally, on my front, in my professional career, I'm, I think, completing 2 decades in this month, a similar number. And I was with Goldman Sachs for the longest period of time. Didn't have the cloud exposure at that time, but what I've observed once I'm into the retail and later on fintech as well, the last 4 years, 5 years have been, I think, quite intense. And I firmly believe in, I'm a strong believer that all of this is a lot related to how you culturally drive your organizations also towards this journey. It's not just pure tech. It's not just about certain business planning around it. So that's where my views kind of reside.
Sure, and we'll touch upon those aspects during our discussion. I'm sure those are pretty important actually, because I firmly believe that everything is not just about tech, but this is a combination of tech, process, people, all put together that defines the success of any initiative in the organization. So thank you so much, Sachin, for that quick introduction. If I may come to you, Ravon, for your quick introduction now.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ravon here. Nice meeting all of you all. I work for Capgemini. I've been here for the last 8 years with a total IT experience of around 23 years. I head the North America Cloud and Emerging Technologies practice and also the CTIO for the cloud teams. So engage with various customers in their cloud journey. I would say more on the app side than on the infra side, more of cloud native development, container-based development, MuleSoft-based integrations, Kafka queues, and those areas.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I think, it's pretty clear from the introduction here that all of you are kind of experts in this domain called cloud. Let me just try and give you, give a quick context here before I come to asking you guys questions and take your perspective. That, this during pandemic, we have all seen there are, business which are got badly hit by pandemic. There are business which are like, thriving in this particular pandemic. So we've seen both the side of businesses, and it's been a couple of months now. The journey of these businesses in terms of, how they got impacted to now how they are performing. It's kind of well established. It's not like, something worked and something clicked during that time, but there have been some fundamental, factors behind the, the success of the businesses in today's economic scenario and the business scenario and the, the pandemic that we are all witnessing, and something which is unprecedented. We have never seen this before. We got all hit by it. One thing which has come out, which has emerged, that the business that are thriving today are majority of the businesses which are like cloud ready, right? So the requirement for any organizations to work from home for its employees and deliver the business outcomes, as much as possible to keep that business growing and not getting impacted by the pandemic as such, right? So maybe if I can capture some views, maybe I start with Avinash on the cloud adoption. What are the the governing factors? What are the driving factors that actually pushed cloud adoption? Because earlier there were people I know in the leadership discussing about whether to go on cloud, whether not to go on cloud, and so all that discussion is not that relevant today. But Avinash, if your views we can have on the subject, please.
Yeah, sure. So, look, I'll just say that being part of a system or a setup where you're able to scale on demand is such a big blessing. And anybody who's worked with legacy systems and systems, banks and other entities would know this, that being able to scale up on demand is something which has never happened before cloud. And cloud gives you that ability to be able to, change how much resources you're allocating depending on how the demand, and it's equally applicable when demand drops, right? A lot of businesses saw a massive drop in demand during COVID, and it's again spiking. Hopefully, as the vaccine comes in, it's going to spike back. So, can you adjust your supply side basis the fluctuation in demand? It's basically being able to quickly assess how demand is moving down or up, and being able to adjust your supply side. Cloud gives you that beautiful capability to be able to do it in real time almost, right? And that's what differentiates businesses which are on cloud versus those which aren't on cloud. And I think it's also a signal, the kind of talent that you attract, the kind of people that you bring in, the kind of mindset that you, as I think Sachin was mentioning, the culture aspect of it. What's the culture that you're building in your organization? Is it a new age digital thought process, or is it, legacy systems and legacy thought process? So because how your systems are, how your interfaces are, that's the kind of people that you're going to attract into the company, and that's the kind of people are going to become like that, right? So I think that's how I would say is the impact of being on cloud. And we've seen that very starkly in our customers. We have over 4,000 customers today. The ones who have coped well are the ones who are future ready, who are digital ready, who are on cloud, and already adapted to that thought process.
Sure. What has been your observation? What has been your experience, Sachin, on this same, cloud adoption during pandemic, and, helping business, as Avinash said, that, achieve that element of scalability. And when we say scalability, it is both sides, right? It is upward as well as downward. So what has been your experience, Sachin?
Sure. I think if I have to contextualize it with respect to what has been happening unprecedented in the last couple of months, I think it has brought in probably more of that shift now, which is whether there is any optionality around this or not, right? Anybody in retail, and I would say even some of the very traditional businesses that we would have thought that probably can continue the way they were, right? Because the presence is local, the business domain is local, the boundaries are defined. Even those are really thinking of achieving an agility and really utilizing the cloud, right? So I think the way I see it now, we have had a radical shift, which is not just in this pandemic though, it was building up, but this has definitely reiterated and I think brought in the fact to have a hard look at how much of nimbleness that you have with respect to how quickly you grow, how much you can react to the change, right? A quick example of that is, for example, if you have a grocery site or you are a retail site and you prepare yourself for certain volumes, you say, I'm preparing for holidays and all, but that's something that you go through the year, literally. Gifting is no business, but no different than what we have in Blackhawk as well, right? So what that means is that you really have some part of the year which becomes something in which you have to prepare for and accordingly have the thing. One very important factor that leads to how much successful you would be for that would be how do you react to change, right? And this pandemic brought in the thing wherein certain sites, certain type of businesses actually skyrocketed, right? We are not talking about like a 2x change or a 4x change. We are talking about like a 10x change on the TPS or the overall traffic that you will see on these sites and all, right? Are you ready for that? Now, how much elastic I am about it? Can I get that elasticity on premise, right? Sure. The definitive answer is a no, right? The amount of gestation period that you'll go through to achieve that is going to be long, right? Cloud provides you that ability. And I think in that, I would say all of them, the different IaaS, be it AWS, be it GCP, be it Azure, I think all of them are standing up to that. That elasticity is one of our core areas that we would be really investing into and providing to anybody who uses this, right? So I think that if you don't have it, then how do you react to this change, right? And that's where certain companies, even if they have some good business context, tended to not be able to tackle that change. And I think now they are probably on the recovery path as things have stabilized again to some degree, right? But I think it's one thing which became very visible. So I think going forward, I don't think there'll be conversations whether it is optional or not, right? Conversations will be how fast we get there.
Sure.
That's what,
great. Thank you. Thank you. Ranga, let's continue on the same topic and, try and get a slight different perspective as to, if you can talk about how the whole cloud, journey shift has impacted your organization, perhaps in serving your set of customers? Maybe from that standpoint, if you can share your thoughts.
Sure, there. I think, like Avinash and Sachin said, there is no question about whether we need to have cloud or not. The debate is gone. It's a must to have now.
Yeah.
We've seen a good transition. Like a year ago, we are primarily digital partners, digital technology partners for most of our customers, completely transforming their existing legacy application, which has been there for 30, 40 years, into this whole modernization aspect of it. Earlier, we have to go convince them, say, hey, this is how you have to do, this is what you have to do. And the convincing was taking, and it's a hierarchical process. We work with larger fintechs like Visas, PayPals, and Novartis is the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. Now it is reversed. The battle is, okay, how soon can you do it? So that's, in the last 3 to 4 months, it's like, you won't believe the amount of growth we had because we were in that particular journey of digital transformation. And whoever were questioning to delay the transformation, maybe a year or later, now we're all expediting very, very fast. You can't even believe some of the banks like DBS were very slow. They had multiple localized setup in different countries to run the business. They're very happy about the growth. But due to this pandemic, everything is going 3x, 4x speed. And so we had a very strong cloud engineering capability. Now we have increased it 3x just to manage the current scenario. And companies like First Data, they were like, huge companies, they're very difficult to move around, shift around. They always think, okay, let's take one step at a time, wait for the major churn to happen and change. It's unimaginable, and it's a very, very good problem to have for us because we are into the solutioning, working with a lot of, and the most importantly, the on-prem versus hybrid. Now there's no on-prem at all. It's completely hybrid, and private is also kind of evolving in some cases. And some of the big like Visas of the world, they've done certain aspect in a particular vertical. Say, for example, merchant, one of the loyalty vertical. But now they're going completely horizontal. They're completely transforming into when thinking as a big picture rather than thinking as a small picture. And that's a huge technology enablement in the last 3 to 6 months that we are seeing. And we are trying hard to cope up with that. So it is becoming a different problem. So we became a customer for them now. So it's a good problem, but hopefully I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And this is not a knee-jerk for sure. This is a reality which was delayed. Now it is actually happening now. And everybody is aligning to that. So modernization, digital modernization is nothing but everything starts from the cloud itself, the infrastructure aspect of it. And they all know how much they're spending on that. And now it is all becoming reality. And whatever they used to do earlier was all like a perceptive investment or abstraction investment or unnecessary investment. Now they feel those investment can be easily repurposed into a real business development than investing in something for maintaining the people, redundancy of infrastructure, which they will not be using 20-30% of the entire aspect of it. Now they don't even have to have that. And like what Avinash and Sachin were saying, elasticity, right? That is a huge advantage that we are seeing now. And where whatever the best they get from each of the provider, they're able to get the best out of it. They can create a combination of the solutions. It's a very interesting transformation we're all going through from the technology perspective. Very happy about it.
Right. So I think, Ranga, what you said, it reminds me of that WhatsApp forward typical that, who accelerated your digital transformation? Was it CTO, CI, or COVID?
It's COVID-19.
Classical case, but I can completely relate it to what you're saying and the element of elasticity and scalability. Avinash brought in and Sachin brought in elasticity. But let me at this juncture come to Revon. And Revon, you spoke about the cloud experience that you bring to the table, and especially from a service provider point of view, in terms of containing creating those containers, microservices, Docker, etc., and helping your customers. So we heard all the other co-panelists talking about the acceleration in the journey of the cloud adoption by the enterprises, and that kind of in some sense determining the success of the organization, right? Whether they become the leaders or the laggards. So how have been the situation at your end in terms of responding to what pressure is coming in from the consumer side, from your experience?
See, what I have seen and what I would call is the second wave of adoption, right? Because today cloud provides the competitive advantage, right? Many of my clients have already moved apps to the cloud, but they were all lift and shifts, and they are not really taking the advantage of the cloud. So it's not designed for elasticity or agility, right? So today I have app modernization as my major offering today, where everybody wants to make monolithic app into multiple microservices, containerize them, shift from one cloud to another, use services of different type, mix and match them, loosely coupled devices. So you have many of these, same terms like you had SOA earlier. Now you have MASA and all that, all recoined, repackaged, but the core concept is loose coupling, right? So many of my customers today are now on that journey that tell me how I can really get the benefits, because they were not born on the cloud like some of the startups are. They have this big monolithic apps, mainframes, ERP packages, even large Java apps. So now their whole focus is how do I break it down, okay? And that's where we are working. We have some customers who have gone the entire mile of rewriting from scratch, almost 40 million lines of code rewriting from scratch. There are some who are just like, let's write quick wrappers around them or just extend them, build an API infrastructure and just work on the front end part of it. But this is one place where we are seeing a lot, because if you look at telecom, for example, right, telecom and life sciences during this pandemic are two industries which are doing really well. But it's also about capturing the market, because you're bringing new promotions. If you cannot launch it in a week's time or in a month's time, you have lost the market. Right. So you need to bring them out quickly. Life sciences needs to bring out a drug discovery in a very, very short period of time. So how do I combine AI to do all that numbers crunching and say, okay, this is a pattern which might help this pandemic? This was not possible earlier, right? So it's now I see the second wave that I see that, okay, we are on the cloud, but are we really using the features of it? Right? We have got the initial cost benefits, but are we getting the competitive benefits is the next.
And I think, I was going through some of the, Gartner reports very recently, and then the shift is taking place where they're talking about first the cloud adoption and then the efficiencies of the cloud adoption from a cost optimization point of view. So, I mean, this is a given fact that all the organizations today are looking at, doing more with less. So I think that's the challenge that everybody is facing. So, I completely agree, Ravon. This whole shift is happening on that front where you talk about efficiencies and you talk about productivity and other measurable outcomes, direct measurable outcomes. So I think Ranga touched upon a particular point where he said that, it's no more about on-prem versus, a hybrid cloud is clearly emerging as winner in terms of go-to strategy from a cloud adoption standpoint. So any of my panelists here who would like to share their views on the hybrid cloud, Sachin, Avinash?
Sure.
Sachin, you? Okay.
Yeah, I can start. As in, so I think there's one thread I'll first pick from what Ravon mentioned. That's a very important one, is the preparedness aspect, right? And then like what you would want to define as your, say, target state, right? Is the target state like, and are you able to define it? Because that time scales aspect is very important, right? And sometimes that pressure zone increases. And the thing is, let's first just get onto the cloud and we'll figure out the rest as a course correction, right? What is important then is somewhere, some points go missing there, which is that about that you would probably take the one which is most compatible with respect to your business model, you're contracting with them and all of that, right? Also the fact that how much probably in a very stipulated time, you would be able to gather some detail as a public information and also do certain discussions through which you see, okay, this works for me kind of thing, right? Those decisions sometimes tend to become very fast and then you get into this vendor lock-in situation, right? Almost like a prisoner to a particular technology, right? So that also should not happen. It should not be that I started from one place wherein there was this thing that I captured myself into this whole on-premise stuff in which change was actually not at the speed that I could do and over time became more archaic. Now I get into the other place wherein, I'm doing fast, but then if the third wave or another wave comes in, wherein, because ultimately it's about certain companies coming together, like taking the initiative to really say that we are gonna be the cloud providers, right? We are an infrastructure as a service. They themselves would have their own revenue models with which you want to be conscious of that, do I really want to sign up completely to it? or should I rather look at a hybrid approach? And that's where it leads to that aspect, right? Which is very important. Then you do want to have, I think I personally believe that it's, but again, I've seen both the things. So I think it's a very good thing to debate also actually, is that if you have the time scales, I would definitely say that there is merit in investing into some abstraction on the cloud itself that you're taking on, right? And then taking on an overall kind of a hybrid approach as well. Because as we do in the financial world with trading, as in, yeah, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to hedge to some degree, right? That hedging also will take its own investment, which means there's an addendum to the investment that you make on the cloud to really say this addendum should be there with a purpose so that I can define a target state as well. And in that addendum, probably I'm building an abstraction there in which I can interoperate between clouds. I can interoperate between certain things on-prem and cloud, right? That I think, and there are certain companies which are really coming out very well in that, who actually are, one on the consuming side are able to set some good precedents, and the others who are actually in a very niche way coming up with good level of tools and stuff through which you could be actually saying that, okay, it doesn't matter whether I'm on the GCP or on AWS, I can use this tool to actually interoperate through them, right? And then I could invest in that addendum on my end to actually provide a way wherein we can navigate through them. Of course, that takes away one thing though, which is that if there is certain things which are very unique to a cloud, and you sometimes do want to think about that, yes, I want to optimize for the specific cloud, right? That's where some business decisions have to be taken. What type of product am I hosting there, right? And is that something that I probably will go native itself, right? Like, is there a pharma product where I'm going to be under the HIPAA regulations, right? Which itself is a very tedious process to really get through, right? Starting from the point of the speccing of it to the audits of it and everything, right? Or am I talking about something which is probably something which I'm giving in some discovery applications? I'm giving certain retail applications in which the stakes are of the nature wherein it is not consumer driven in that sense, right? So which domain you're in, what you're trying to do also determines some aspects of that on how much native you want to go versus not, right? So it's a very long topic in that sense, but I would say that one should plan for that addendum, define the state beyond your migration to the cloud, must define the state beyond that. Then you can work backwards towards, should I look into an interoperating model or should I really look into one? And I'm happy with that and I'll optimize for that cloud and I'll keep investing into that relationship, right? So that is kind of how I look at it. Yeah.
So I think what I get from you, Sachin, is that the whole thing is very strategic in terms of the whole cloud adoption journey. But in terms of the time available at hand, in terms of the business scenario dynamics that changing so fast today, the kind of agility it is required, it almost sounds like a tactical or operational thing that you have to take that operational or tactical call, but yet be strategic in terms of making sure that you don't make those fundamental mistakes that can lead to a bigger problem.
Exactly
towards the end of the journey, while it looks a great start in the beginning. But let me come to you, Avinash, on this. You've been serving 4,000 customers. That is what I heard. In terms of your offerings, how well you have adopted the cloud in terms of offering. What is the kind of model that you have, and what are the key decision points that you had in mind in terms of launching your offering or providing your offering on cloud? So if you can share that will be a great example of how.
So we went on a cloud journey, and just to sort of capstone what Sachin was saying in the last question, I agree. If somebody is today now thinking, how do I go on cloud or should I go on cloud? If today you're thinking that, you've already lost the plot. Right? Because every industry has already crossed that question and they've moved. And these are questions, whether it's digitization as a larger picture or whether it's moving to cloud. These are questions which, ideally businesses should have been thinking for a very significant period of time, not just enterprise customers, but I'm talking about, startups and SMEs as well. Whether you're a tech company or not, I believe literally every business is a tech business today. Right? You may be either selling tech or leveraging tech, but you cannot say that I don't use tech and I'm not linked to tech in any business, even if you're completely traditionally looked at as a non-tech business, because there is tech and digitization coming in everywhere. Right? So what we did was we actually chose a complete cloud model I think about 3.5, 4 years ago, right? And that was pretty tough call for us to take, because the temptation was to not necessarily go full-fledged whole hog. In fact, 5 years ago, right? But we said that, look, this is how our scalability is going to be. This is how we're going to grow. And was there resistance from some customers, especially large enterprise customers? Yes, there were customers who turned around and said, look, is it going to be sustainable? Is my data secure? What happens if this goes down? And all those questions were, things which did come up. But if I look at the pros and cons today, we won't have been able to scale up and get to 4,000 customers as fast as we have if we hadn't made sure that we are on a complete cloud model. Because all the while we would have been thinking, how do I scale up? Do I scale up? Do I not invest? Do I invest? How much do I invest? The mind share that whole question would have taken from our end would have just taken our eye off the ball from, as Ranga was saying, business development, making our solution better, making our platform solution better, thinking about how to reach more users, more businesses. So that whole journey would have got impacted significantly if we were figuring out how to to put it in a very slightly crude way. If you're always solving for the roti kapda makan question, you're never going to be able to build the innovation, right? So if you're always trying to solve for the base thing, then you are just grappling with that. So I think that's how our journey has been, and the pandemic really allowed us to ramp up, because as Ranga was saying, we saw massive sign-ups of our expense management platform. There are a large number of customers who are thinking about it, dabbling about it, thinking, do we need a platform today? Do we need a platform which will ask us to digitize so completely our expense management? And we just saw, massive number of partnerships, whether it's DBS, whether it's ICICI, whether it's, a couple of other large banks, Yes Bank, ICICI, IndusInd Bank. We work a whole host of partners, Yatra.com, as well as, actual enterprise customers, like companies like Tata Steel, GVK Bio, not traditionally the tech companies, the ones which we already were doing very well with, but the non-tech companies also saying, look, I want to control my expense. I don't want to have this scenario where my finance team is working from all remote places. How do the employees submit any of their bills? How do I know my other expenses? Do I need to shut down branches? Do I need to think of utility bills that I'm incurring for branches when the branch is shut? Right? Why should I incur it? How much am I incurring? Why am I So those are questions which people wanted to answer through dashboards and data. And when you have that on a dashboard and data, that answer becomes so much clearer, right? And we were able to provide that solution in a very rapid way because we were on cloud. If I had a system which was still, the traditional way, I'd have first said, oh, if I'm adding X number of customers, I need to increase my capacity by Y. And then go back and figure out during the pandemic how to increase that capacity. Usme I would have taken like 2 months would be gone for me. Right? So that's the power of being on cloud, and we saw that firsthand.
Sure, great. I think that was a great experience sharing, Avinash, and that's the reason that you said that you could onboard 4,000 customers in a very short span of time. At the same time, I also like the point that you made that the cloud journey, particularly in your case, was something that got started almost 4 years back, which is like, it's not that you got into a situation and you started thinking about it and then delivering it. This was like a very well thought plan, well ahead of its time, or maybe, well in time. So I think that's something, that tells that why companies have been successful today versus why there are companies who are struggling with the fact that, they have to put together basic things. So, Ranga, if I may come to you, and I would like to know your views, on the point that Sachin brought up. I think in this discussion, one thing is very clear: cloud adoption journey and all that, and got accelerated. Everything is great, but then there are certain things which are bothering people, while adopting cloud or concerning them. And one of the things that Sachin mentioned was vendor lock-in. It's a big pain point, big concern. What are your views on that? What's your take on that?
So we have a first-hand experience and also the customer-based experience. We do a lot of digital platform internally we develop. And we call that as a playground where we use it for talent transformation, hiring, and internal, a lot of activity. It's like a digital platform for all employees. So we initially started out with one service provider, and it was like we like I said, we are more like we became a slave for them. So the storage they will dictate, the security cost they will dictate, maintenance cost they will dictate, and that was a good learning. And then when we went to the customers, it was like they had the question. We work with large fintechs, right? Very like PI, PCI information, a lot of sensitive personal information, and also like from the healthcare, it is even sensitive. So all the disease information, all of that. So when we go there, we are trying to help them a solution that will be a long-term and also be on cloud where the cost is reduced and it's a flexibility of using the entire infrastructure. Again, when they're getting locked into another vendor, then they're done. So that's when we were working with all the possible options from Azure to GCP to AWS, everybody. And we created a whole capability assessment of all these three and also a few others to see who's good in what. And we went with the package. If it is a small business, like a startup types, we also technology partnering with a lot of startups because we are the technology wing itself for most of the startups in US and India. So for them, since we are providing the complete technology support, so we need to go with a package which helps them to be as nimble as possible and manages their maintenance costs, security cost, and also the storage cost, a lot of costs associated with it. And that was really going well. The small business was perfectly fine. When we went to the mid-level, the medium business, that's when some of them have gone past certain maturity model in their business and domain where it is hard for them to bring it back and associate in either of the costs that we were thinking about it. And like Revan was saying, it was lift and shift, most of them initially. And also with the larger company, lift and shift. Once they did this, we have to go there and say what is the best way to do it in terms of making a hybrid and also understanding this whole avoiding lock-ins of each of these vendors. And we have to make some hard decisions. And we just told them, give them complete 3, 6 months and 1 year or 18 months assessment of what will be the cost to be converted into a lock-in with the current vendor into multiple options. There was a bit of an initial change or a cost involved, but eventually after 1 year, they get a huge benefit. With all the best available in each of the vendors, they were able to lift and shift and scalable, upskill, downskill, or say whatever the elasticity they can do, and everything they were able to do it. And so far, I think with at least out of 20, 25 customers, 16 of them have completely moved on to this hybrid model with multi-vendor option. So I think those are two keys that is evolving. I think most of you would agree. The multi-vendor and this two is very, very strong these days. And yes, it was tough. And that is a boon now with having so much. And we could see some of them have gone matured in certain aspect of it. Like when you go to Europe, the processing is very, very, like they have too many processes and compliances and GDPR, blah, blah, blah. They go on and on. And every transaction has a compliance issues when compliance management. So for that, for example, Azure is like I would say they've gone a little better in managing those the documentation and transaction model and fintech modeling especially, and those comes as a handy. But if you go for the storage and elasticity and the security aspect of it, Azure may not be that well, but it is coming up there. So we are seeing the mix and match of it. If it is a large customer where they have a bigger investment, we kind of go some of the redundancies. But if it is a mid-size, we try to make a risk, and which is okay. So, but this lock-in is something, it's completely, I think it's out of the jargon in terms of this cloud going forward because everybody is competing and fighting against each other. It's a good thing to have. The competition really gives us a good advantage, and everybody is fighting in a very competitive, productive manner, which is helping us to provide a good solution.
Sure. I think the interesting point which came out was that, having a multi-vendor strategy, going on hybrid model, I think that helps you overcome certain challenges in terms of vendor lock-in. And so, Revan, we've spoken about cloud adoption, we've spoken about the opportunities and the challenges at the same time. But let's discuss a little bit about the whole shift that is happening from cloud to edge, and if you can share your perspective on that, because eventually all the enterprises serving customer have to take that into consideration when they have to move on the cloud journey, in real sense.
Yeah. See, I think the trend that I'm seeing now, okay, specifically when you say smart factories, smart cars, smart industries, is to bring the processing closer to the data, right? Earlier, you would send all the data to the cloud, process and come back. But today, that's becoming a challenge. So if you look at a smart, let's say in a smart factory, which is trying to optimize its manufacturing, it needs to take its real-time decisions, okay? You look at an autonomous car, you really cannot send the data, get it processed, and then come back, right? You need it instantly to take some decisions. So that is one thing. Second thing, trends like 5G is really enabling a lot of data creation now. So you really cannot send huge tons of data across the cloud and then get the processing back. So everything has to happen very close to where the systems are. And I see edge going more and more popular. For example, one of the largest food chains right now, we are discussing on how to implement edge. And their use case is very peculiar because they have these food chains in very rural areas also, which are not necessarily connected over the online all the time. So they want edge out there. Not a lot of, when they're online, fine, but if they're not, they can do a lot of local processing themselves.
Sure.
Okay, that combining with the need to get instant response, I think will drive edge more and more. And 5G is a big catalyst for it.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we are almost.
Add.
Sure.
Just if I may
sure,
add
Ranga. Sure.
Revon there.
Sure, Ranga.
So with this whole IoT is like what Revon was mentioning, the whole IoT is like scaling. We know, right? The last 2 years is where 90% of the data got added. Just in a few years. The whole world data, only the last 2 to 3 years, we got 90% of it, which means imagine the amount of data. And with 5G getting into this mix, it's going to be huge. Yeah. And like you said, the healthcare is also a major aspect, what everyone was saying, and the automobile. And also, most importantly, some of it on the real-time, the quantum assessment, right? So that is also taking a huge space, where edge computing is going to be a huge value. Like you said, I think there are some of the trends, I would say, IoT, edge computing, quantum, and bit of a serverless architecture. These are the terms I would see in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be evolving. And anything in this space, if you're not learning or hearing this, which means you're completely outdated. That's how I would say it.
Right. No, interesting. Thank you so much, Ranga. I think, we've already, crossed the time, the 45 minutes allotted for this particular discussion. But I mean, I'm assuming that we may have 4 or 5 minutes. So I may want to come to each one of you with a specific question, which is, we've spoken about cloud adoption and the acceleration that it requires in terms of, organizations to be the leader in their own space, respective space. What is the kind of, state of talent availability that each one of you have experienced, and I would like to start with Avinash, with respect to talent availability, and the same question to all my speakers. Maybe one by one, I'll take the name and come to you. But Avinash, to start with you.
It's always a struggle, in my opinion, because the pace at which we are seeing growth in India, around the world in these spaces, and the traditional learning systems that we have, and the ways in which we have all learned as well. So I have also been part of the same system, and there's a direct conflict, right? So one of the things that we do, obviously, is to bring in smart people and put them through a series of trainings on our end as well, rather than just depending on ready talent. And I would actively encourage, companies which are growing, consider this, because I think a lot of the, large-size companies like Capgemini, etc., would already be doing this. But I think it's important to build that culture within your company that you don't look for ready talent always, but bring in the right attitude and the right aptitude, and then you make sure that you're building for those skills. So it is short, and it's not going to change anytime soon. That's my feeling. This talent shortage is going to be there, and companies need to learn how to cope with that and become better at training their teams.
Sure. So you're talking about, Avinash, in some sense, talent factory in-house, on-prem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hybrid, actually, both.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Sachin, your take on that?
Yeah, sure. As in, I think absolutely, Cloud Journey has raised the bar on what we expect from the talent, right? And that's where initially, when I said cultural aspects also, right? It's important to highlight that, which is that when you are in discussion, when you are doing that sourcing discovery of who would be your engineers who are coming in and be able to solidly contribute to this journey, right? They need to be having those elements of that thinking, right? But at the same time, I don't think I would say that there's any cookie cutter model that, okay, you must have this checklist of these 5 things. What is important is that the foundational concepts have not gone away. They will stay, right? The system design, these types of things with respect to you being able to have, of course, one area I think which has undergone a lot of new documentation and good blogs and socialization and knowledge sharing across the internet, I think in the last couple of years, is around distributed systems, right? So there's a time wherein things existed, and it was the navigation through that was itself a task, right? I think what has happened is that it has spread so much now that has become a very core element of when you're speaking with somebody, that do you have a sense that it's not just I'm talking about this one thing, I'm talking about coordination across, I'm talking about services, I'm talking about all of this. So those have become very basic elements of the interview discussions and the assessments, right? They have, but at the same time, I think it does also lead to, I think you guys just touched upon that, which is, I look at it this way, that I would look for certain set of things extracted out of what is required as the core skills, which will make you successful in being an engineer in cloud. But at the same time, take something of myself and my company where I'm at to really say that, like, it has to go both ways, right? You look into that and accordingly provide them the environment as well, wherein they can thrive into it, right? Sure. Because I think Ranga has mentioned that a couple of times, very importantly, right? It's moving very fast, right? And you need to keep up to it. That keep up to it has to be something in which you have a good investment made in some separation of duties and concerns also done, wherein there are folks who are totally focused on keeping up to it, actually, right? Yeah. They are bringing in that. They are focusing on, some are focusing on the governance aspects, some are focusing on that I will keep doing POC even if you don't have a business case yet. How do I fund that? Can I put few folks who just keep doing that, right? And then larger pool to actually, of course, correlated a lot with the business demands of it, right? So, yep, I think there have been some challenges with respect to that, but I would say that it is something which goes both ways, and one should abstract out what you require in as a cloud element and a DevOps element and these kinds of things in your engineer. As long as you're able to extract that, I think there is a good level of orientation that you can provide and accordingly grow the talent.
Sure, great. I think great perspective around, especially the internal innovation, where even if you don't have a business use case, but if you can fund those kind of things and develop the talent the way Avinash was talking about, having in-house kind of a skill factory, but grooming those talent by virtue of that. I think that's a great perspective. Revon, what has been your experience? You've been working on several large projects, right? And you really need the workforce.
Yeah. So if you've been reading the newspapers, right, all the TCS, Infy, Wipro, massive digital transformation of their employees, right? But I think the biggest challenge, and this goes back to what Avinash and Sachin said, right? If you focus on training people on technology, the shelf life of any technology today is only 6 to 8 months. That's changing. It's more important to train people on, for example, what is a cloud native development paradigm? What does loosely coupled mean? What does microservices mean? And how can I build a culture of self-learning? Because today, like for example, in Capgemini, I have stopped all instructor-led trainings. It's all self-study. And you have to learn end-to-end, including DevOps. Full-stack developers are more. Gone are the days that I'm a UI developer or a backend developer, right? I'm a full-stack developer right now. So I need to know the entire gamut of things from day one. So I think the entire paradigm is changing, and people need to understand that. If you're investing in a technology, hey, I want to learn Angular or I want to learn Akka, I think you're investing in the wrong path, actually.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And Ranga, one, quick take from your side, because we are already, I think we have overrun the time, and the organizers are saying that.
Sure. I think
if
I'm
we
not,
could,
not going to say anything different than what Avinash, Sachin, and Revan said. It's a combination of everything, like what Revan's saying. So, like, we have our own internal playground where we create that environment. Like you said, it's not a professor-led, teacher-led education anymore. So people need to know what they are ready for it. All we have to do is the availability of infrastructure and how things are evolving. So they can participate. We create a lot of challenges and opportunities for them to participate. And like we said, in technically DevOps and the cloud ops and cloud engineering, we have only maximum of 6% of the entire population. The 6% has to enable another 30% in the next 1.5 years, which is what is going to be the huge factor. And within that, the whole automation. I think DevOps and cloud is like almost like a twin baby. So that's how it works. And so that is a huge capability centers, and most of the companies are investing, and that we've been investing for the last 3 years. It is really paying us. We have 10% of our people in this space, which is helping, and we are growing in that. Like Avinash said, it has to be ingrown. It cannot be brought from the market. It is not a ready-made available, because it's very customizable. Everybody has a different way of implementing it, different solutions, different template, API service. Everything is very different. So we need to package the product that we wanted. And it is mostly inside out than an outside in approach. And again, so we know how to, we've been there in this, and too many things comes up. After 6 months, we get adopted and learn and just move on. But this is a very great learning in this space, and everybody looking forward for it. Yeah, we need to wait and watch what the next phase of it.
In fact, this 6% to 30%, the equation that you gave, and if you really look at the digital acceleration in terms of cloud adoption, which is going, maybe 10x to 20x to 30x, that whole percentage might change in 1.5 years time. But things are going to grow only. So the good part is that cloud adoption has to be here. It's real. It's strategic. Sachin said, Avinash said, Revan also mentioned about it, that it has to be it's a strategic thing for any organization. But the time available at hand in terms of taking your decisions and evaluation and everything, you have to be so much agile that it practically looks like a tactical to operational issue. If you look at it from a distance. But I mean, wonderful discussion today with all of you. Thank you so much, Avinash. Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you so much, Revan, and thank you so much, Ranga. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hand it over to Anamika. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you for being such an excellent moderator. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to interacting with you more. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And stay safe.
Stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Stay safe. Take care. Bye. Good day. Bye.